Hey guys, tonight we time travel back to a place where the streets are slick with who knows what chamber pots, fly out of second-story windows, and rats practically pay rent. You're standing in the middle of a medieval European town, narrow cobbled alleys, twisting through timber-framed buildings. Every window open, not for ventilation, but because people don't exactly have indoor plumbing. The air. It hits you like a wall of rot and smoke and mystery meat. And the people. They're tense. Something's coming. Something awful. And you poor soul have no idea what you've signed up for. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in a creaky straw mattress, the kind where you're never sure if the prickly bit in your back is hay or something still wiggling. There's a faint scratching sound in the corner. You tell yourself it's probably just the wind. It's not. It's rats. Again, outside the sun hasn't fully risen, but the streets are already groaning with wooden wheels and market cries. A fishmonger is yelling something about eels and freshness, though the stench suggests otherwise. And oh, the smells. A dizzying swirl of animal dung, unwashed bodies, and an underlying aroma of despair. People scurry past like they're late for something. They always are these days. Whispers spread faster than the baker's fire last winter. Someone on Candlewick Street coughed blood yesterday. Someone else keeled over at church mid-hymn. One man swears he saw black swellings on his cousin's neck. Another claims it's just bad beer. You don't need a physician to tell you something's very, very wrong. Except funny thing, there are barely any physicians left. You rub the sleep from your eyes, shake the lice from your tunic, just part of the routine, and head toward town square. You don't have a real job. Not yet. But the city council is desperate. We need plague doctors, they're saying. Anyone with steady hands. Or hands in general. So what if you can't read Latin or measure a pulse without guessing? You're upright and not currently bleeding from your eyes. That puts you ahead of half the applicants. You remember how it started just a few towns over. Word arrived with the traders. Plague in Messina, they whispered. No one listened. Then the funerals began. First a trickle, then entire processions, until the gravediggers started refusing to come to work. It's 1348, and though nobody uses the term yet, the Black Death is chewing through Europe like a sickle in overripe wheat. Now here you are. A living, breathing body technically qualified only because you're still breathing. The elders offer you a cot near the infirmary and a small bag of coins. In return, you must visit the sick. Record the dead, wave a bunch of herbs, and pretend you understand the stars. Oh, and if you die, they promise a nice funeral, maybe. Your new quarters smell like mildew, and something sweet gone wrong. A previous doctor left a note carved into the wall. They lied about the pay. You've heard of plague doctors, those weird figures with beaked masks and dark robes. Until recently you thought they were just folk tales, the stuff of bedtime threats. Eat your peas or the plague doctor will come, your mother used to say. Now you're one of them. You walk the streets trying to spot your first patient, or rather your first encounter with inevitable failure. A woman leans out her window shouting that her husband is not feeling himself. You look up and see him lying limp in the bed, behind her face, the colour of old parchment, a swelling near his jaw, pulsing ominously. You hesitate, but you've already been seen. The door creaks open. You step inside. The air smells of sweat, bile and resignation. You kneel beside the man, trying to remember what the barber surgeon mentioned during your one afternoon of training. Bloodletting leeches. Onions under the pillow. At this point, you might as well consult the cat. Can you save him, the woman asks. You murmur something non-committal, mostly to sound like you know what you're doing. You reach into your bag and pull out a rag soaked in rosewater, dabbing his forehead. It does absolutely nothing. But it looks like care. Outside, children are playing with a severed rat tail. The irony does not escape you. As the sun dips, bells toll again. You lose count of how many times they ring each day now. It's like the soundtrack of apocalypse on repeat. Your clothes stick to you with sweat and fear. People eye you with a mix of hope and horror. Some make the sign of the cross as you pass. Others clutch their children and turn away. You're not a person anymore. You're a symbol. One foot in the world of the living, the other already dipped in the grave. That night, you try to sleep. You toss. You itch. You mutter a prayer you don't quite believe in anymore. Through the window, the sky looks especially dark, like the stars are hiding. A rat scuttles across your chest. You don't even flinch. You're too tired to care. Tomorrow you'll start learning how to be a plague doctor, or at least how to survive pretending to be one. And you'll quickly learn something important. Nobody actually knows what they're doing. You wake up to screaming. Not the theatrical kind, this is the raw, panicked wail of someone watching their world collapse. It's coming from 2 houses over. You sit up scratch at a flea bite and wonder, not for the first time, if you can just stay in bed and pretend to be dead. Too bad the city council is already expecting their newest plague doctor to start saving lives, or at least look like they're trying. You step outside into a world slightly more frenzied than yesterday. The baker's stand is unmanned. A chicken wanders across the road, and someone is burning herbs in a corner, while muttering Latin, though it sounds suspiciously like he's just making up words. A few townsfolk stop to stare at you. You're still not wearing the full outfit that comes later, but your reputation is already catching up. Word travels fast when everyone's bored and terrified. A pale teenager approaches you, lips trembling. "My sister," he says, pointing toward a rickety house that looks like it's held up by hope and termites. You sigh because there's no saying no. Inside it's dim and smells like bad broth and wet wood. You step closer and see the girl lying on a straw mat. Her breathing is shallow skin covered in dark, angry blotches. You try not to flinch. You've heard that this could be the bubonic kind. The one with lumps. If it spreads to the lungs, it becomes pneumonic. That's when it gets really dicey. The brother is watching your every move. You have no idea what you're doing, so you nod solemnly, like you're diagnosing something profound. Then you pull out your stick, yes, your official plague poking stick, and give her a gentle prod. She moans, still alive. That's something. You wave some burning rosemary near her head. Maybe it helps. Maybe it just makes the room smell slightly less like panic. You instruct the boy to wash her with vinegar water and keep the windows open. Then you say something vague about the balance of humours and pretend you didn't just make that up. He nods like you're a genius. Back outside, you spot a city official nailing another red X onto a door. The family inside probably hasn't even realised they're all presumed dead yet. The city's trying to manage the plague, bless their optimistic little hearts. They've closed the bathhouses, which means everyone's somehow filthier than before. Public gatherings are banned, which just means people whisper in tight circles instead of crowds. And any cart entering the city gets fumigated with smoke and suspicion. You head toward the cathedral, where the bishop has apparently summoned all available healers for a meeting. That means you 2 apothecaries, and a man who claims to be a licensed alchemist, but smells like bad wine and wood smoke. The bishop paces before you, robes swishing dramatically. "This is divine punishment," he declares. "God is testing us." You're not sure what the test is, but you're pretty confident everyone is failing it. The alchemist suggests lighting more fires. The apothecaries want to increase rose petal production. You ask whether anyone's thought about moving patients away from the crowded city centre. The bishop frowns at you. Are you questioning God's plan? You're not technically. You're questioning everyone else's. On your way out, you pass a small group of monks reading from a book. One notices you. "You are the plague doctor," he asks, squinting, as if the bird mask were already on. There is a theory that Saturn and Jupiter aligned in a cursed way last year. That may have done it. You file that away in your mental drawer marked, "Not helpful, but intriguing." Historians still argue whether medieval people genuinely believed in planetary misalignment causing disease, or whether it was just the best excuse available when you had no microscopes, no lab coats, and zero germ theory. Some blamed comets, others blamed the wind. A few blamed sin. One person blamed spoiled cheese. Honestly, they were all about equally wrong. Later that day, you're summoned to a manor. The family inside is wealthy, evidenced by their curtains not being made of old potato sacks. They've got a case of the plague, but they want it treated with discretion. That means you enter through the back, keep quiet, and pretend you're there to bless the house or something equally harmless. The patient is the lady of the house, flushed and gasping. A priest hovers nearby, trying to look helpful while not breathing too deeply. You open your bag, pull out a few remedies, a dried toad, some clove oil, and a bit of dried lavender, and get to work being impressive. You wave things. You hum a few solemn notes. You even draw some symbols on the floor with chalk which might be from a child's hopscotch game, but they look arcane enough. The husband slips you extra coin. Make her comfortable, he says not unkindly. You give her a last whiff of vinegar-soaked linen and nod. It's all you can do. You trudge back to your quarters, passing a new wooden cart collecting bodies. You see a boy following the cart holding his mother's hand. Her face is blank. You think about saying something, but you don't. There are no words anymore, just routine. Eat a crust of bread, drink weak beer, scratch your ankle, sleep badly, wake up to another call. There's a rhythm now. Wake, wander, wave, herbs, write death notes. Wonder how it all went wrong. At some point, you hear about a town 2 days away where everyone is dead. Not most, not nearly, all. The rats moved in before the survivors could even bury the last bodies. You're not scared anymore. You're something worse used to it. You fall asleep that night hearing bells again, and you think grimly at least someone is still ringing them. Today's the day. You're getting the outfit. A local tanner drops off a bundle wrapped in old linen and a vague sense of doom. You unroll it slowly, revealing your new uniform, a long waxed cloak made of thick canvas, or leather, a pair of gloves that look like they've already seen things no gloves should see, and boots that crunch ominously when you bend them. But it's the mask that stops you. It stares back at you from the floor, all beak and black, glassy eyes, like some nightmarish bird got a government contract. Congratulations! You're officially a plague doctor now, or at least you look like one. The mask is heavy, awkward, and smells like sour herbs and glue. The beak. Supposedly, it's for stuffing with fragrant things, lavender, camphor, mint, even dried rose petals, anything to cover up the reek of decay. But it also has another purpose. It creates distance. You're no longer just a person walking into a room. You're a figure, a symbol, a creature that lurks between medicine and myth. You put it on. Immediately, your breath fogs the inside of the lenses. Everything becomes muffled, dim, and a little surreal. The world looks like a bad dream and sounds like you're underwater in a thunderstorm. You step into the street and watch people react. A woman crosses herself. A child screams and runs. Someone mutters that death has come walking. You consider waving, but the long black coat kind of kills the vibe. Historically, it's unclear exactly when the full beaked outfit became standard plague doctor wear. Some scholars say it wasn't widely used until later plagues in the 17th century. But for the sake of your current reputation and job security, let's just pretend it's trending earlier. In this version, you're fashion forward. Tragically so. Your first visit in full gear is to a row house, where a family of 4 is trying to pretend everything's fine. They answer the door with forced smiles, insisting they're just a little feverish. One look at the youngest, his lips blue, his eyes glassy, and you know that denial is doing a lot of heavy lifting. You try to reassure them, but through the mask, your voice comes out deep and warbly. Comforting. Not exactly. You sound like a haunted kettle. You open your medical bag. Inside you've got your plague poking stick, clean dish, some posies tied with ribbon jars of herbs, and a few ominous tools you mostly carry for intimidation. People take you more seriously when you hold a scalpel, even if you're more likely to drop it than use it. You wave burning rosemary around the boy, then dab his wrists with vinegar. None of it matters. Not really. But doing anything feels like a small rebellion against the overwhelming tide of helplessness. Outside, a group of boys dares each other to touch the edge of your cloak. One does and immediately runs away screaming. You're not sure whether to feel insulted or flattered. A merchant hails you, asking if he should drink garlic water daily. Another man asks if it's true pigeons can draw out the sickness. You tell them both yes, because at this point, garlic and pigeons are as good a plan as any. That afternoon, you attend your first plague consult with the mayor and his advisors. It's held in a small stone chamber that smells like damp paper and rising panic. Everyone sits far apart, clutching their own posy bundles like lifelines. The mayor wants answers. What's the cause, he demands? How do we stop it? You recite what you've heard: corrupted air imbalance of bodily humours, celestial misalignment, possibly divine wrath. No one seems satisfied, especially not the mayor's brother who claims it's the witches again. You suggest fumigating the wells and avoiding large gatherings. Someone accuses you of witchcraft. It's a productive meeting. You return to your quarters and collapse onto your mattress. Your cloak is stiff with dried sweat. The mask sits on the floor staring at you. You remember something a travelling scholar once told you long before the plague hit. He'd studied medicine in Salerno and claimed that washing with wine could disinfect wounds. He also believed that disease came from invisible creatures too small to see. Everyone laughed at him. Historians still argue whether medieval thinkers ever truly grasped the concept of contagion. Some say there were flashes of insight observations that diseases could be transmitted person to person. Others argue it was all superstition until much later. In your case, you don't need a microscope to know that getting close to a plague victim without your bird costume is a very fast way to stop needing one. By evening, a heavy fog rolls in, the kind that turns everything into a silhouette. You pass a couple whispering a prayer over their baby who lies still under a threadbare blanket. They don't ask for help. They just nod when you walk past. You feel like an imposter, because you are. Your only defense is that everyone is faking it now. You light a small lamp and sit by the window. Outside, someone's singing a lullaby, barely audible over the sound of distant carts. You hold your mask in your lap and stare into its glass eyes. Why am I doing this? You ask aloud. The mask doesn't answer, but the rat scurrying across your floor does seem to shrug a little. You wake up coughing, not the dry, polite kind. A real chest rattling, maybe it's your turn kind of cough. You sit up fast, heart thudding, already planning your will. Then you remember you accidentally inhaled some powdered camphor last night trying to freshen your beak. Crisis, narrowly avoided, but that's the mood now. Every sneeze feels like an omen, every ache a prophecy, and you noble plague doctor are right in the thick of it, wrapped in waxed fabric and false authority. Today's route takes you to the edge of town. A cluster of homes near the fields has started reporting symptoms. You pass the city gates, where a pair of guards nod at you with weary respect. They don't stop you. No one stops the beak doctor. The fields are quiet. Farmers have either fled or are too sick to tend their crops. A few attempt half-hearted ploughing, coughing between steps. You smell smoke on the air, someone's burning clothes again. The first house on your list has a red smear on the door. Not quite an X, more like a panicked splash. You knock. Nothing. You knock again, louder. A groan. The door creaks open and a hand waves you inside. It's dark, thick with heat and despair. 3 people lie in the same room. One is whispering nonsense to the ceiling, one is unconscious, and the third is sitting upright staring at you like you're the devil's emissary. You kneel by her. Her lips are cracked. She asks if you've brought bread. You haven't. Instead, you offer vinegar water and a few drops of laudanum. It's all you have left. You make a note to beg for more supplies again. The apothecary keeps locking his door after too many panicked raids. You place a pouch of dried herbs under one pillow. It probably won't help, but it smells less awful than the mattress. As you leave, the girl asks if she's going to die. You say, "Not if I can help it," and hate how much you sound like a bad travelling bard. You walk on. The sun climbs higher, baking the path and drawing out the scent of unwashed humanity from every doorway. You pass a man dragging a dead goat by its hooves. He doesn't even look at you, just mutters, "Wasn't the goat's fault." Further along, you reach what used to be a cheerful cottage. Now it's half-shuttered and strangely silent. You knock. The door opens slowly, not by a person, but a rope tied to a lever. Inside, a woman stands on the far side of the room, keeping her distance. Smart. She shouts, "My son's in the back. He hasn't moved since yesterday." You glance around. Everything smells faintly of soap and burnt garlic. She's tried something, at least. The boy is young, maybe 10, curled up under a sheet. His skin is blotched, but he's breathing. Barely. You ask for wine to clean his lips. She passes a bottle on the end of a broom handle. Effective if clumsy. You dab wipe fan his face. Then you try a trick you once saw from a travelling mystic holding a mirror to his lips to see the fog. It's there, faint, but real. You promise the mother you'll return tomorrow, and this time you mean it. Outside, you sit under a tree and try not to cry. Instead, you think about rats. They're everywhere. Climbing barrels, darting under carts, twitching their noses like they're in charge now. You've heard whispers that the fleas they carry might be part of the problem, though no one really understands how. Theories are wild. One barber surgeon insists it's bad thoughts. Another claims it's from kissing on feast days. You once heard a priest say it was the colour black itself that summoned the plague. Historians still argue whether any medieval city even came close to controlling rat populations meaningfully. Most didn't. Cats were distrusted, sometimes even persecuted, and poison was unreliable at best. The rats won, quietly, efficiently, and with tiny disease-laden legs. You head back toward town and pass a makeshift shrine. Flowers, candles, a few silver coins left under a stone. Someone has drawn an angel on the wall in charcoal. The wings are too big, the eyes too sad. You stop to admire it, then keep moving. At the city centre, a crowd has gathered despite warnings. A man stands atop a cart preaching loudly. Repent, the end is near. He's not wrong, just not very helpful. You slip through the crowd unnoticed until a child tugs your cloak. "Mr. Doctor," she says, holding up a doll. She's sick too. You examine the doll. One button eye missing, straw poking from the neck. You make a big show of pressing your fingers to its forehead. "She's going to be just fine," you say. The girl beams. Her mother mouths a thank you. Back home, your quarters smell like damp linen and thyme. You boil a pot of water to sterilize your tools, not that it does much. You change out of your gear, stretch your aching back, and sink onto your cot. Somewhere outside, bells ring again. So many bells. You write a quick note in your journal. It's mostly scribbles now. Names, symptoms, guesses. And one tiny, stubborn sentence you keep adding to. Still here. The bell rings at dawn. It's not the soft clang of a monastery call to prayer. This one is sharp, hurried, desperate. A death bell. A signal that another body needs collecting. You groan, pull on your boots, and wrestle your mask into place. It's wet inside. Why is it always wet inside? The streets are misty this morning. Not the cozy, poetic kind of mist. This fog smells like coal smoke and unwashed bodies. You trudge toward the bell's source boots, squelching in something you hope is just mud. No one says good morning anymore. At the edge of a small alley, two men wait beside a cart. The cart itself is a horror show of limbs and bundled cloth. One man gags. The other just smokes his pipe with the resigned air of someone who's given up trying to process anything. You inspect the latest edition. Middle-aged woman, maybe a merchant's wife, wrapped in her own curtain. One hand is clenched around a rosary. The other is missing a few fingers. Likely chewed off by rats post-mortem, but you don't say that out loud. No one wants plague and trauma. You nod. The men load her onto the pile. This is your morning routine now. The bell rings. You walk. You witness. You used to try to pray for the bodies. Now you just whisper sorry under your breath and hope the universe interprets it kindly. Later you stop at the apothecary. The place is barricaded like a miniature fortress. You rap your cane 3 times, then twice more your agreed signal. The door creaks open an inch. You again, the voice mutters. Need more laudanum, and rue if you've got it. A pause. You paying? You slide a pouch of coins through the crack. The door opens just wide enough for 2 small paper packets to be pushed out. Then slams. Inside is laudanum, all right, and instead of rue you get saffron. You sigh. Fancy. Useless, but fancy. As you walk, you pass a preacher nailing a proclamation to the church door. It's written in Latin, of course, because heaven forbid anyone actually understands what it says. You catch a few words, pestis, penitentia mortuus, and piece it together. More dying, more repentance, standard plague bulletin. You remember when people used to debate things like which saint could protect against illness. Some still cling to Saint Sebastian, others to Saint Roche. You overheard one man praying to both just to hedge his bets. Historians still argue whether religious processions during plague years helped or worsened the spread. You've seen them groups walking barefoot, whipping themselves bloody, chanting about sin and salvation. You once tried to stop one citing the risk of spreading disease. They tried to whip you too. You left them alone after that. You make your way to the convent next. The nuns are overwhelmed. 2 have died. 1 more is coughing blood. The abbess greets you with the calm of someone who's seen too much to panic now. God's will, she says. But please, if you have anything left. You give her your last real medicine. She thanks you anyway. Before you go, she shows you a young novice, maybe 15, tending to the sick. The girl's eyes are red. Not from tears, from fatigue. She hasn't stopped in days. You hand her a cloth soaked in vinegar and tell her to hold it over her mouth. Will this keep me safe, she asks. No, you admit. But it smells nicer than what you're breathing. Outside, a small parade shuffles past. Not a celebration, funerals are the only processions allowed now. Mourners walk slowly, some weeping, others just hollow-eyed. One man sings softly. A child releases a dove. It flies exactly 3 feet before being snatched out of the air by a hawk, because of course it does. You stop at the riverbank for a moment of peace. But even here the water is streaked with ash and filth. Fishermen have abandoned their boats. A dead dog floats by. You don't look away fast enough. You think about the university in Paris where they supposedly published a treatise blaming the stars for the plague. A pestilential conjunction, they said. Mars and Saturn in an unlucky embrace. You snort. The stars might be aligned but not in your favour. On your way back, you're stopped by a nobleman's servant. She's shaking, breathless. My master, she pleads. He's not right. You follow her to a townhouse with marble columns and curtains tied back with gold rope. Inside, the master lies on a silk-draped couch raving about demons. He's covered in boils, and his breath rattles like a broken bellows. You try to examine him, but he swings a candlestick at your head. You dodge barely. The servant weeps in the corner. He was kind, she whispers. He gave to the poor. Now he's foaming at the mouth. You do what you can: bind his arms, rub his temples with crushed mint, recite a few calming verses. It buys him a few hours. Maybe, back in your quarters, you sit on the floor and lean your head against the wall. You smell like smoke-rot vinegar and something worse. Your hands are shaking. You haven't eaten since yesterday, and even then it was a half-stale crust dipped in broth. You think about leaving, about walking to the hills and just not coming back. But then you remember the girl with the doll, the novice at the convent, the servant who held your hand for just a second before you left. You pick up your mask, you clean it. Tomorrow the bell will ring again, and you'll answer. You dream of feathers, not the soft, comforting kind in a pillow. These ones are wet, matted, dripping with something dark. They float through a grey sky above a city that's burning and silent and far too still. You try to move, but your legs don't work. A crow lands on your shoulder and whispers. You missed one. You wake up sweating. Another day, another round. Your knees crack when you stand. Your breath smells like garlic and regret. You barely notice anymore. Outside it's raining, but only just. The kind of rain that can't decide whether to clean the air or make it stickier. You pull your hood tighter and push through the muck. Your first stop is the baker's house, or what used to be a baker's house. He hasn't baked in weeks, but his wife insists on calling him the baker like his profession might still protect him. He's lying on a pallet now, skin pale, fingers curled. His breath is shallow. You check for the telltale signs, the swelling under the arms, the dark bruises spreading across his chest like ink blots. They're there. You offer his wife a few drops of opium tincture for the pain, you say. She nods, then pours some for herself. You look around the room and see the walls are lined with flour sacks, untouched. Mice have gotten to most of them. The baker's wife asks if you want any. You politely decline. As you leave, a boy throws a stone at your feet and shouts, "Deathbird!" His mother grabs him and apologizes. You wave it off. It's not the worst nickname you've had. You pass the town square where a merchant is selling charms and plague-proof amulets. One is a dried frog strung on twine. Another is a lump of amber with a beetle inside. He claims they ward off the Black Death. You stop and ask him where he gets them. He says the forest, then adds, "Mostly made them myself, though." You resist the urge to point out that he has a suspicious cough. Historians still argue whether these charms had any social benefit. Some say they were placebo. Others claim they served as emotional anchors. You suspect both are true. A charm won't stop the plague, but it might stop a person from despairing at least for a little while. You continue on to the tannery district where the stench of old leather and wet hides mixes with something far worse. The tanners have been hit hard. 3 gone last week, 2 more this morning. One man you visit is delirious, muttering about wolves in his walls. His wife tries to calm him, but she's coughing too. You leave her a linen rag soaked in lavender and tell her to breathe through it. She asks if that will help. You say it might. It won't. You notice the workers are starting to wear rags over their mouths. Not because they believe in germs, those aren't a thing yet, at least not here, but because they can't stand the smell. Still, it's progress. At noon, you stop by the mayor's quarters. The mayor hasn't left his home in weeks. He's barricaded himself in issuing orders through a small hatch in the door. You knock and a hand pushes out a letter. It's sealed in wax and smells faintly of cloves. The letter is a new proclamation. All taverns are to close, all public fires are to be extinguished by sunset, and anyone caught gathering in groups larger than 3 will be fined or flogged. You sigh. As you walk away, you spot 3 drunk men arm in arm singing a song about fleas. One of them offers you ale. You decline. Barely. On your route, you check on the undertaker's apprentice. The old undertaker himself has long since succumbed. The apprentice is about 17 and permanently grimy. He nods at you from behind a cart full of shrouds. "I think the well's bad," he says. "Saw 2 rats swim out of it yesterday." "Don't drink it," you reply. He shrugs. Too late. You pause by the church to rest your legs. The priest is giving last rites through the door, now refusing to enter houses. He keeps a bucket of holy water on a stick. You've considered asking him to bless your beak, just to be safe. A group of children runs past, chasing a stray dog. One of them is wearing a mask made of bark and string, pretending to be you. He says, "I cure you," and pokes the dog with a stick. The others laugh. You think of correcting him, but honestly, it's nice to hear laughter. Later that day, you visit a scholar who insists he's found a cure. He's boiling lizard tails in vinegar and reciting Latin backwards. The concoction smells like feet and sadness. He offers you a vial. Will it help, you ask? No, he admits, but it keeps the rats out. You take the vial anyway. Back in the poorer quarter, someone's painted symbols on the doors, circles, crosses, stars. No one knows what they mean. Some think they're signs of who to avoid. Others think they're warnings. You suspect they're just the remnants of grief scribbled in desperation. You pass a house where the windows are all smashed in. Inside, a man lies dead on the floor. No one's claimed the body. You make a note to send the bell ringers. As evening sets in, the city takes on that eerie quiet you've come to dread. No carts, no children, no bells. Just the soft moan of wind through empty streets and the occasional caw of crows. You walk slower now. Your feet ache. Your lungs feel tight. You think about how the Venetian plague doctors supposedly carried small crystal spheres to protect themselves from miasmas. You wish you had one, if only for the placebo. You check your list. One more visit. It's a widow who's requested confession, even though you're not a priest. You consider explaining that again. But when you arrive, she simply wants to talk. She speaks of her husband, her garden, the way she used to make plum tarts. You listen. Before you leave, she presses a small cloth doll into your hand. "For company," she says, "in case you forget who you are." You nod. You don't say anything. Back in your quarters, you light a candle and sit with the doll in your palm. You haven't forgotten who you are. You just don't know how much longer you can be him. You start counting how many masks you've gone through. It's either 5 or 6. One melted near the fire, one torn by a dog, and one simply disappeared, probably stolen, and sold for a few coins. The others wore out from used leather seams, fraying the beak, sagging like a wilted flower. This one smells like vinegar and despair. You spritz the inside with rose water. It doesn't help. You open your door and step out. A raven perches on your rooftop. It caws 3 times, then flies away. You decide it's not an omen. Not today. You head toward the miller's house first. It's oddly quiet, too quiet even for plague days. When you knock, the door creaks open by itself. Inside, everything is in place. The table is set. Bread on a plate. A cloth draped over a basket. No miller. You check the back room. He's there, sitting in a chair staring out the window, breathing. Alive. You approach and say his name. He jumps startled. "You scared the sin out of me," he mutters. "Thought you were the angel of death." You chuckle gently. "Not yet. He hasn't spoken to anyone in weeks. Thought the world had ended. He's been rationing oats and pretending his cat can talk." You tell him the city's still here for better or worse. You leave him a pouch of dried herbs and instructions on making a sleep tonic. As you leave, the cat hisses at you. You hiss back. A drawer. Down the road you pass what used to be a school. A crude drawing of a plague doctor, big nose, angry eyebrows, is scratched into the wall. A child's version of you. The real you waves at the empty windows, just in case someone's still inside. At the bathhouse, the owner is burning towels. Too risky to clean, he explains, tossing them onto a growing bonfire. Better to purge it with flame. "Very biblical," you murmur. He chuckles, then coughs. "Hard. Are you begin." "No," he snaps, waving you off. "Dust, just dust." You hand him a packet of thyme and sage anyway. Boil it. Breathe the steam. He nods and mutters, "Thanks, Crowface." You'll take it. Later that day, you make your way to the monastery library. The monks are still alive, mostly because they've shut the gates and posted a sign, "Quarantine in prayer." But you know a way in the loose stone in the north wall. Inside it smells like ink, candle wax, and old paper. Peaceful. Brother Thomas meets you near the scriptorium. He looks tired, but healthy. "You need more charts?" he asks. "I've copied the astrological alignments for the next fortnight." You nod, more out of politeness than belief. Historians still argue whether astrology guided medieval medicine. He says always ready, with a scholarly aside. Some even claimed it could predict plague outbreaks. "Can it, you ask?" He shrugs. "Depends on your definition of predict." You sit and talk for a while. He shows you a new treatise, something from Italy smuggled in by traders. It suggests isolating patients and burning clothes. Revolutionary but obvious to you. You leave with a scroll tucked under your arm and a slightly lighter spirit. Outside, a woman runs up to you weeping. "My daughter," she says. Please, she won't stop shaking. You follow her through a maze of alleyways to a small room where the girl lies curled on a cot, drenched in sweat. You recognize the symptoms. Fever tremors, a rash creeping across her chest. You try everything. Rosewater compresses, tincture of poppy. You recite old prayers, mostly for the mother's sake. After 2 hours, the shaking stops. So does the breathing. The mother crumples beside the cot. You sit with her in silence. Nothing needs to be said. Later, as you walk home, you pass a man shouting from a rooftop. He claims he's seen angels in the fog, and they're made of fire. Someone below yells, "Jump if you're a prophet." He does. You run. He's alive somehow. Broken leg, possibly worse. You splint it as best you can and tell the crowd to give him space. "He's mad," someone mutters. Maybe you reply, but he still bleeds. In the evening, you return to your small quarters. You light your single candle and set out your tools, knife, tongs, a mortar, and pestle. You clean them with vinegar and wine. Then, for no particular reason, you begin to write. You document the symptoms you saw today, the reactions, the herbs you used, what helped, what didn't. You're no physician in the modern sense, but knowledge matters. Even if no one reads it, the act feels important. You pause halfway down the page. Your hands are trembling. You dip your quill again and keep writing. A knock at your door. You open it. A boy stands there, maybe 10 years old. He says nothing, just hands you a small pouch, then runs off. Inside the pouch, dried marigold flowers and a piece of bread. You smile, you eat. You sleep. You dream of nothing. You wake to a dripping sound. Not rain this time, just a slow rhythmic drip from your ceiling into a tin bowl. You forgot to patch the hole again. The bowl's half full. You briefly consider moving it, then decide against it. The sound is oddly calming. You rise bones creaking like old wood and dress in ritual. Linen shirt, woolen vest, leather boots. Finally the mask. Always the mask. You tie it snug, sealing yourself into another day. Outside the city exhales in wheezes. Fog rolls low through the alleyways, thick and damp like the breath of something ancient. You tighten your hood and begin your rounds. Your first stop is the herbalist's shop, or what remains of it. The owner, a prickly old woman named Odette, passed last week. Her niece has taken over, which mostly means she's started charging double. I'm the only one left selling rue, she says smugly. You glance at the shelves, mostly empty now. A few sprigs of lavender, some dried rosemary, a jar labelled snake bits, possibly effective. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. People will buy anything if you say it's rare. You purchase a satchel of wormwood and something that might be mustard seed. The niece throws in a free candle shaped like a goat. You don't ask why. Outside the street is quiet again. You hear footsteps, but they echo strange. You turn and nothing. Just fog, and maybe a feeling that you're not quite alone. Historians still argue whether plague doctors were feared more than the disease. There's something about the silhouette, the long coat, the beak, the staff that makes people uneasy. You can't blame them. You barely recognize your own reflection. You head to the carpenter's workshop. He was healthy last week. Today he's slumped over a half-finished cradle hands, locked around a chisel. You step inside. The smell hits you spiced winewood shavings and the sour scent of fever. You touch his shoulder. His eyes flutter open. I wanted to finish it, he whispers. For her baby. Whose? My daughter's. She's gone now, but I thought. He breaks off. You gently pry the chisel from his hand. He's burning up. You mix a poultice clay vinegar and thyme and wrap it around his wrists. It won't cure him, but it might ease the pain. He smiles faintly and asks you to bless the cradle. I'm not a priest, you remind him. Still, he says. You place your hand on the wood and say something soft. A prayer, a poem, maybe nonsense. He nods. Back outside, 2 dogs fight over a loaf of bread. A third dog watches you approach, then wags its tail and trots beside you like a sidekick. You name it Dr. Two. The animal follows you to the next house where a young woman waits with a broom in hand. Don't bring fleas in here, she warns. Dr. Two sits on the stoop. You examine her brother, a pale boy with a high fever and a rash like falling stars across his ribs. She's been using onion slices under his arms. It's not helping. You offer a compress of lavender and cold cloths. Keep his feet cool. Talk to him, even if he doesn't answer. She nods and offers you tea. You accept if only for the warmth. It tastes like boiled grass and hope. You leave with a biscuit wrapped in paper. Dr. Two tries to steal it. You share. You pass the square. A man is playing a lute badly. His audience is 3 skeletons propped on barrels wearing hats. You slow your step. He waves. Afternoon healer. They like music. Do they? He shrugs. Better than silence. You nod and drop a coin into his hat. He begins a new song. It's mostly about fleas again. You move on. At a well near the bakery, you meet an old nun who claims the water is cursed. Turned to death last Tuesday, she says. Tasted of iron and sorrow. You ask what she drinks now. Rain, she replies. Holy rain. I keep a bucket. You admire her conviction, then offer her a satchel of dried fruit and a flask of wine. For the sorrow, you say. She blesses you, then blesses Dr. Two. He sneezes. By late afternoon, the city feels thinner somehow. Like the people left are stretched too far. You visit a cobbler who's barricaded his shop with planks. He won't let you in, but speaks through the boards. You've got the stink of it, he says. All of you, covered in rot. I'm not sick, yet you leave a satchel of garlic on his stoop and walk away. You think about what the scholar said last week about the rats. They don't die from it, he whispered. They just carry it like tiny messengers of doom. You wonder if he was right. If the plague is a story whispered from flea to flea, skipped across backs and bellies like a game of broken telephone. Historians still argue whether the rats were the true villains. Some blame trade ships, others poor sanitation. A few say it was all inevitable. That cities were simply too tight, too hungry, too ready. You stop by the watchtower before sundown. The guards there are sick too, but still posting lists of the dead. The parchment flaps in the wind, too full to read. You add 3 names with your own charcoal: the carpenter, the brother, the woman in the alley. You didn't have time to help. You don't look up. If you do, you might see your own name written in faded ink. As dusk falls, you and Dr. 2 return to your quarters. You remove your mask and pour water into a basin. Your reflection looks older, worn, but still here. You light a candle and take out your ledger. Today's notes include the boy with the rash possible recovery, the carpenter's cradle unfinished, loot man very bad at loot, water tasting like sorrow, psychological. You pause, then add one more. Dog companion morale booster, no fleas yet. You eat a crust of bread, wash your hands in rose water, and lie back on your cot. Dr. 2 curls up at your feet. Tomorrow will come. It always does. Whether you're ready or not, you wake before the sun. Not on purpose, your dreams tipped you out. Something about masks with no faces behind them walking through fog that whispered in Latin. You stretch, yawn, and accidentally nudge Dr. 2 with your foot. He snorts and resumes snoring. You envy his peace. You pull on your coat, the familiar weight of it settling onto your shoulders like a wet prayer, and open your window. A light breeze drifts in carrying the scent of wet stone and ashes. Somewhere someone is burning something again. You hope it's just garbage. On your way down the alley, a rooster crows. You look up to find it perched triumphantly atop a corpse cart. Even the birds have their own strange rituals now. Your first patient is waiting. Literally, she's sitting cross-legged outside your door. Morning, she says. I think I have the plague. You squint. She looks too chipper. How sure? 92%, she says. I've got symptoms. Which? General malaise, existential dread, vague itchiness. You suppress a sigh. This happens sometimes. People read a symptom list once and declare themselves doomed. You check her pulse, normal. Temperature fine. Tongue pink and dramatic. Diagnosis high anxiety, low exposure. You hand her a sachet of chamomile and some breathing instructions. If that doesn't work, you say try not reading. She grins and thanks you. Do you validate parking? You blink. I'm joking, she adds. I'm a jester's apprentice. Of course she is. After she skips off, you make your way to the riverfront. The fog's clearing, revealing boats bobbing like tired ducks. One vessel flies a yellow flag quarantine. No one on shore dares approach. Historians still argue whether quarantine was enforced more by fear or law. In practice, it was both. Merchant ships often had to anchor offshore for weeks, sometimes months, until the city felt brave or desperate enough to let them dock. You see one of the sailors waving a cloth. You wave back. What else can you do? You meet a baker sitting on a crate cradling a sack of flour like a newborn. It's the last of it, she says. I'm thinking of sculpting it into a deity. You nod. Yeastus the risen one. She laughs so hard she wheezes. Don't make me joyful. I'm saving that for Sunday. She gives you a roll slightly burnt, slightly weepy. It tastes like warmth. You leave her with a note on how to make sage compresses. Dr. 2, who somehow found you again, begs for crumbs. You give in. You always do. Down an alley near the tannery, a man in robes beckons to you. Come quick, he whispers. It's my wife. You follow him into a cramped room that smells like leather and lavender. She lies still on a mat, breathing shallowly. You kneel beside her, no visible boils, no fever, just silence. She hasn't spoken in 2 days, he says, just stares. You hold her wrist, pulse there, weak. You lift her eyelid. She flinches slightly. She's in there, you say. He nods. She lost our son last week. She thinks he's still outside. Grief then. Not the plague, but just as brutal. You brew a tonic from valerian root and a splash of red wine, warm it by the fire, and hold it to her lips. She sips slowly. Her eyes remain unfocused. Before you leave, you place a smooth stone in her hand. Hold this, you whisper. Feel the weight. Come back. The husband thanks you. You tell him to talk to her every morning like nothing's wrong. Sometimes the voice matters more than the words. Outside, the sun's creeping higher. A group of children, 4 of them somehow still alive and whole, play a game involving sticks mud and shouted accusations of Rat King. You smile under your mask. Then a boy points at you. Monster, he cries. Another disagrees. No, he's a crow wizard. Monster wizard, the third yells. Friend, says the fourth quietly. You raise your hand in salute. They cheer. You walk on. Later you meet the grave digger. He's taking a break under a tree drinking from a tin cup. You've been busy, you say. I've been building cathedrals underground, he replies, all unmarked, all holy. You sit beside him. He offers you a sip. You decline. He gestures to the pit nearby, a fresh, neat wide. Mass grave, he says. Again, they keep dying faster than I can learn their names. You stay quiet for a while. Do you believe in ghosts, he asks. Only in crowded rooms, he laughs. Historians still argue whether medieval Europe saw a rise in ghost stories during the plague. Some say it was fear. Others say it was grief. A few say it was because the veil between life and death was just thinner then, like tissue paper in a rainstorm. You rise, pat his shoulder, and keep walking. Your last visit of the day is to a scribe, young, fevered, and raving about the alphabet being cursed. I dreamt that A and B are enemies, he mumbles. And Q knows too much. You give him a poppy tincture and some water. He calms eventually. As you stand to leave, he grabs your wrist. Write it down, he whispers. Whatever you're seeing, even if it makes no sense. You nod. Back in your room, you sit by the candle and begin again. You write the jester's apprentice, the baker with the flower god, the ship that waves, the alphabet conspiring. Then you pause, scratch your head, draw a tiny picture of Dr. Two. You look at the page. You realize you're not just recording symptoms anymore. You're making a record of the world as it warps, bends, and somehow still turns. You blow out the candle and lie back. Tonight you dream of nothing. Again. You wake to the sound of bells. Not church bells. Those have mostly fallen silent, but the high metallic ring of warning. It means another fire, or maybe a building collapse, or maybe just someone wanting to be noticed. In these days, the line between emergency and theatre has thinned. You sit up slowly, every joint clicking like old hinges. Dr. Two is already at the doortail, wagging, ready to escort you through the daily grim ballet. You pat his head, then reach for your gloves. Today, the air is thick and sweet, cloying wrong, like someone overboiled sugar with too much clove. You know that smell. It means someone's trying to cover decay with perfume. You brace yourself. Your first visit is to the apothecary, or what's left of it. The roof has caved in, and glass crunches underfoot. You find the apprentice, young, usually sarcastic, now huddled under a broken shelf, clutching a vial of rose oil. I didn't know where else to go, he mumbles. You help him out, dusting him off. His eyes are too wide, his voice too flat. Was it an accident? No, he says. Just wait. Too many tinctures, not enough structure. That's a metaphor if you've ever heard one. You salvage what you can, dried mint, a cracked jar of honey, a small pouch labelled sleep probably. You hand him the sleep pouch. Use this, just not all at once. He nods, and you guide him to a nearby convent that's been taking in orphans and apprentices alike. The sisters don't ask many questions. Outside, a man in full armour stands in the street. He's shining, ridiculous and immobile. You approach. Are you well, you ask? I am protected, he replies, visor unmoving. Iron repels death. You circle him slowly. The armour is real dented, scorched in places, held together by divine optimism. Do you eat in that? Mostly broth. Can you sit? Rarely. You nod. You'll be remembered. He salutes stiffly. Dr. Two growls softly, uncertain. You walk on. Historians still argue whether medieval folk actually believed in miasma, the idea that bad air spread disease. Some say yes, citing all the posy stuffed masks and vinegar-soaked robes. Others argue it was more of a cultural reflex, a way to explain the unexplainable. Either way, you still carry a pouch of rosemary in your pocket, just in case. You visit a midwife next. She's busy as always, not delivering children, but helping bury them. She wears red gloves, a tradition from older times. Blood and mercy. Today she's tending to a girl who survived fever but now won't speak. Her name's Lucia, the midwife tells you. She draws instead of talking. Lucia sits in a corner scribbling on scrap parchment with charcoal. You kneel beside her. May I see? She shows you a picture, a tall figure in a beaked mask standing in a field of stars. You blink. That's me. She nods. You chuckle. I've never looked so tall. She adds a dog beside you. Dr. Two approves. You ask her a few yes or no questions. She nods and shakes her head, communicating in shrugs and furrowed brows. She'll come back, you say quietly to the midwife. I hope so, she replies. But I don't rush them anymore. Grief bends time. You stay a while helping distribute herbal teas and rubbing ointment into sore hands. The work is slow grounding. You lose track of the hour. Later you visit the city walls. A scribe sits there every day recording names. No one pays him, but he keeps writing. Still at it, you ask. Words are all I have left. He shows you the list. Names, dates, little notes. Loved roses. Had a crooked tooth. Laughed like thunder. You add one believed iron repels death. He smiles. Historians won't believe half of this, he says. Historians are optimists, you reply. You pass a man selling plague-proof cloaks. They're just old curtains dyed black, but he shouts confidently. Woven with holy thread, blessed by a goat. By a what, you ask. He winks. Most sacred of animals. You shake your head and toss him a coin. Not for the cloak, for the joy. Dr. Two sneezes on the curtain. It seems fair. At a fountain you meet a woman with a violin. She plays softly melancholy notes that drift like ash. You ask her why she plays. For the ghost, she says. You sit beside her for a while, eyes closed. Some days the best treatment you offer is your presence. As twilight descends, you're summoned to the home of a former nobleman. Once grand, now a ruin, wearing a wig. Inside he lies in bed, surrounded by dusty portraits and wilted roses. Doctor, he croaks, tell me the truth. Is it coming for me? You glance around, no fever, no sores, just too much wine and too little humility. Eventually you say, but not tonight. He sighs in dramatic relief. Then he insists on reading you bad poetry, about death and swans, possibly symbolic. You listen politely because kindness has its own medicinal value. Before you leave, he gives you a gold coin and a strange key. What's it for, you ask? Unclear, he whispers, possibly metaphorical. You take it anyway. Back in your quarters you journal. Lucia's drawings, violin ghosts, curtain cloaks, metaphorical keys. You light a candle and watch it flicker. Dr. Two curls beside your bed, snout twitching in sleep. You blow out the flame and rest your head. Tonight you dream of stars and charcoal lines. Morning arrives reluctantly, as if even the sun is tired of this century. You wake to the creak of wood and the distant toll of another bell. This one is slow and heavy, a death knell. Someone important perhaps, or someone with relatives who bribed the bell ringer. You stretch spine popping like corn in oil and grope for your mask. You hesitate. For a moment, you consider not putting it on, just going out barefaced, breathing whatever this world has become. But the thought of the smell, the rot, the vinegar, the fear pulls you back to sense. The beat goes on. You step outside and are immediately met by fog, not the gentle kind that hugs the ankles. No, this fog is ambitious. It swallows buildings, eats sound, makes you wonder if you're the last person alive. You pull your coat tighter and follow the shape of Dr. Two as he pads ahead like a shadow with ears. Your first stop is the bathhouse, or what used to be one. Now it's a convalescence ward. The hot water is long gone, the steam replaced by herbal smog from boiling thyme and nettle. Inside, bodies lie on stone slabs wrapped in damp cloth. Most are asleep. Some are more still than sleep allows. You check on a young boy who survived the worst of it, sweating, moaning delirium, but who now refuses to eat. His mother watches you with hollow eyes. Nothing tempts him, she whispers, not even honey. You kneel beside the boy, remove a small vial of cinnamon oil, and place a drop on a cloth. You wave it gently beneath his nose. He sniffs, blinks again. His lips move. Cake. You chuckle, close enough. You leave the cloth with him. Let him smell it often, you tell the mother. Memory can feed hope. Historians still argue whether aromatherapy had any real effect, or if it was simply a distraction from despair. You've seen enough to suspect it's both. Outside, the fog lingers. You walk slowly, now your boots echoing too loudly on the cobblestones. The quiet makes everything feel like a dream, or a trick. You pass a puppet show set up in an alley. The puppeteer wears no mask, just a wide grin and cracked hands. He's performing a scene where Death plays cards with a rat and loses. The rat cackles and steals his robe. Children laugh, so do a few adults. You linger to watch the end. Death comes back with a broom and sweeps the rat off the table. They always return, the puppeteer says, noticing you. You nod, like fleas. He tips his hat. Dr. Two tries to bite the rat puppet. You pretend not to notice. Later a runner finds you, a skinny girl in a tattered cloak, breathless. The bellmaker, she says. He's sick. You follow her through narrow passages to a small workshop. The air here is heavy with metal and soot. The bellmaker lies on a cot, pale and sweating, surrounded by half-finished bells. He greets you with a rattle in his throat. I heard my own bell yesterday. You examine him, boils along the ribs, fever high, skin dry and spotted. Not the worst case you've seen, but far from mild. You mix a paste of honey, garlic and crushed lavender, part medicine, part prayer, and apply it gently. He winces, but doesn't complain. What should I do, he asks. Rest, drink, dream good dreams. Of what? You glance around the shop, make a bell that sounds like laughter. He smiles faintly. You leave a sachet of calming herbs beside him. Ring when you need me, you say. You mean it both literally and otherwise. From there, you head to the market square. It's emptier than usual, just a few desperate sellers hawking stale bread and questionable eels. One man offers anti-plague hats. They're just old helmets with feathers glued on top. You try one on. Dr. Two growls disapproval. You take it off. Someone calls your name, a familiar voice. It's the woman with the violin sitting near the old fountain. I wrote something new, she says. She plays a few notes, bright, strange, unlike anything you've heard. It twists in the air like smoke, then resolves into something almost hopeful. What's it called, you ask? What comes after, she replies. You nod. What does come after? Maybe something quieter. You thank her and walk on. Next, you stop by the cobbler's workshop. He's stitching shoes for the dead burial slip, as he calls them. It's polite, he says. No one wants to arrive barefoot to the afterlife. You help him sort pairs, tiny ones for children, broad ones for labourers. One pair with gold thread for a woman who used to dance. There's beauty in this, he says even now. You believe him? Historians still argue whether medieval people found art therapeutic during the plague, or whether it was simply their only way to scream into the void. You think maybe art is always both cry and comfort. Back at your room, you find a note pinned to your door. It's from the nobleman with the poetry. He's written another verse. You groan but read it anyway. O crow of healing with beak so grim, you fly through death, your light is dim. Yet in your shadow blooms do rise a silent hope beneath dark skies. It's not terrible. You smile. You enter, remove your mask and collapse into the chair. Dr. Two hops up beside you and rests his head on your lap. You whisper mostly to yourself, one more day survived. You journal, cinnamon dreams, puppet rats, burial shoes, bells waiting to laugh. You fall asleep sitting up. You dream of a city where every bell sings a different kind of joy. You wake stiff, bent at the waist, like a forgotten quill. Dr. Two huffs, clearly disapproving of your sleeping posture. You scratch behind his ears, which buys you forgiveness barely. Outside it's raining, not the clean, refreshing kind. This is medieval rain, a moody drizzle that turns streets into mud and your boots into regrets. You slide on your cloak and step into the grey, the world smelling faintly of wet stone and worse things that the water brings up. Today's first call comes from a tanner's apprentice. You can already smell it before you arrive, pungent acidic something between boiled boots and burnt onions. The tanner's shop is one of those necessary evils. Everyone hates it. Everyone needs it. The apprentice greets you, one hand holding a scrap of leather, the other pressed to his chest. He's not waking up, he says simply. The master tanner is slumped over a work table surrounded by vats and hides. His skin is pale, mottled lips, blue but dry. You lean in listening, and yes, a breath. Shallow, but there. You tell the apprentice to get blankets and vinegar. You begin the process, rubbing his arms, lifting his legs, whispering nonsense that sounds vaguely medical. Come back, you say, more to the room than the man. Eventually the tanner groans. It's not poetic, but it's enough. The apprentice stares. Is he? He's very annoyed to be alive, you reply. A pause. Good. You advise rest, warmth, and maybe less exposure to chemicals that could fell a mule. As you leave, Dr. Two sneezes loudly, and you both make a fast exit. The air clings to your robe like bad choices. Next stop is the cemetery. You're not there for a burial, at least not yet. You've been summoned by the gravedigger, a man known simply as Stoic Thomas. Thomas, as usual, is leaning on his shovel eyes, squinting at the clouds like he's trying to bargain with them. You called for me, you ask. He nods. We found something. He leads you to a fresh grave. Except it's not a grave anymore. The rain has collapsed part of it, revealing wood and fabric and a carved stone beneath. It's older, he says. Pre-plague. You crouch and examine the stone Latin script, nearly worn away, a crude angel scratched at the top. A family crest sits crookedly to the side. Someone important, you murmur. Thomas scratches his chin. Want to put it back? You shake your head. Let it breathe for a bit. Might remind us someone was here before all this. He grunts agreement. As you leave, he waves with his shovel. Rain thickens. Your next visit is to a glass blower, formerly prolific, now just stubborn. You find her inside her cramped studio, surrounded by half-melted dreams. "Doctor," she shouts over the hiss of rain on her forge. "I made you something." You glance around. "If it's another fragile mask, I'll cry." She hands you a small vial instead. Blue glass shaped like a tear. "Raincatcher," she says. "Said to trap sorrow, or at least hold it until you're ready." You turn it in your hands. "What happens when it's full?" She smiles. "Then you throw it in the river." You nod, pocketing it. While you're there, she mentions a sore throat, probably from smoke, possibly from yelling at clouds. You give her a lozenge made of honey and fennel and tell her to try whispering for a day. She laughs. Whispering is for secrets, ideal in truths. Outside, you walk along a collapsed street where the stones have shifted like teeth in a crooked mouth. You see a familiar shape, Lucia, the girl who draws instead of speaking. She's chalking a mural on a wall stars birds, a tall-beaked figure reaching for the moon. You pause. She's drawn you again. You wave. She offers a chalk stick. Together in silence, you add a dog at your side. Dr. Tu watches, then rolls dramatically in a puddle. Art critic. Lucia smiles. Not just with her lips, but all the way up to her eyes. You leave her a small pouch of charcoal and rosemary. She nods once very serious. Later in a side alley, a boy sells paper birds. They fly, he claims. When you wish hard enough, you buy one. You don't wish, but you do toss it into the wind. It flutters a bit. Back at the infirmary, a monk shows you a curious item, a journal bound in human skin. "He wanted it this way," the monk says awkwardly. You leaf through it. The writing is chaotic notes on fever hallucinations God and what colours he saw before blacking out. One margin reads, "Plague isn't death, it's forgetting." You nod grimly. He wasn't wrong. You ask to borrow it, and the monk agrees on the condition you never mention where it came from. Historians still argue whether these things really existed, he says. Let's keep the mystery alive. You journal the day's findings. Blue vial of sorrow, silent murals, grave angels, flying paper lies. That night, as you prepare for bed, you place the vial on your windowsill. It catches a raindrop, then another. You wonder if one day it will be full, and if you'll be strong enough to let it go. Dr. Tu curls beside you, damp and dreaming. You close your eyes and drift somewhere between memory and maybe rain again. You wake to the sound of it ticking against the shutters like fingernails. Not urgent, not gentle, just persistent like everything else in this era. You stretch bones objecting and sit up slowly. The scent of damp wool and vinegar hangs in the air like a curtain you don't remember drawing. Dr. Tu snorts. Even he looks tired of puddles. You wash with cold water that makes your fingers curse your ancestors and begin the day. The mass goes on with a resigned sigh. Your first stop is a chapel, one of the older ones, where the saints on the walls are more chipped than sacred. The friar inside is pacing, hands clasped behind his back, mumbling in Latin. He sees you and visibly relaxes. "It's Brother Alwyn," he says. He hasn't spoken in days, just writes. You find Brother Alwyn in a corner, wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by sheets of parchment. Each is covered in strange symbols, swirls, dots, crosses and what might be onions. Has he eaten, you ask? Only figs, the friar says. He says they whisper better than bread. You crouch beside Alwyn and pick up a parchment. It looks less like writing and more like the dreams of a bored candle. You hold up a drawing. This one's either a miracle or indigestion. Alwyn smiles. Just slightly. Progress. You hand him a sprig of mint, and he sniffs it like it's made of secrets. You leave a tincture of valerian and suggest he be moved closer to sunlight. He's not mad, you say, just overwhelmed. Historians still argue whether plague visions were real spiritual experiences or simply fever dreams filtered through faith. Either way, they tend to leave good art behind. Outside, the rain slackens just enough to feel like apology. Next, you check on the spice merchant, one of the last still operating. He's barricaded in his shop like a siege victim, surrounded by jars labelled with names that don't help Dragon's Breath Witch Salt Joy. You tap on the door. He peers through a slit. Is it Wednesday? It's plague o'clock, you reply. He lets you in reluctantly. Inside, it smells like every country at once. I'm fine, he says. Just don't like the air today. You notice his pupils too wide, his skin flushed. You ask to check his pulse. He relents. Definitely fever, mild but rising. You prescribe rest tea and none of the powders labelled may be illegal. He laughs. Those are the best kind. Before you leave, he hands you a pouch of dried orange peel. For brightness, he says. We all need some. You thank him. Outside, a familiar voice calls your name. It's the baker's boy tugging your sleeve. Come quick. The pigeons are acting weird. This is not a sentence you expected today. You follow him to the central square where, sure enough, a flock of pigeons is circling endlessly over the statue of St. Magnus. Do they look cursed, he asks. You squint. They look confused, possibly debating theology. A woman nearby suggests it's a sign. He's sending birds instead of angels. You tilt your head. Cheaper airfare, I suppose. As the pigeons finally scatter, you notice one drops something, a small ribbon, perhaps stolen from a window. It lands at your feet, damp, but oddly beautiful. You tie it around your wrist. Later you visit a carpenter who's been working on coffins so long he's started carving faces into them. Smiling ones. You really think they're smiling on the way out, you ask? He shrugs. Some people do better in the next life. He shows you one shaped like a boat. For a sailor? No, for a midwife. She liked oceans. You leave quietly touched. Dr. 2 places a paw on the coffin gently. The final visit of the day is a midwife's cottage. She's still alive, still fierce but worried. The babies are quiet, she says. Even the unborn ones. It's like they know. You sit with her and discuss symptoms. No fever, no swelling, just stillness. You think they'll come late, she asks? Or right on time, you reply. Even stars take their pause. Historians still argue whether birth rates dropped during plague years, or if records simply failed. Either way, every newborn feels like rebellion. As you prepare to leave, she hands you a tiny knitted hat. Just in case, she says. You tuck it into your satchel beside the orange peel and the ribbon. You end the day by visiting the apothecary, who's been experimenting with licorice and lime peel to tame the bitterness of death. How's it going, you ask? He grimaces after chewing a test batch. I think I invented regret. You try it. It's not awful, just confusing. That night, back in your room, you line up your day's souvenirs. The ribbon from the pigeons. The baby hat. A piece of smile coffin wood. A fig sketch from Alwyn. Orange peel for brightness. You stare at them. They're not cures, not answers, but they are proof that life still insists. You write rain visions, laughing coffins, whispering figs, saints with wings of pigeons. Dr. 2 sighs curled in a damp ball. You curl beside him. Somewhere in the distance a bell rings, not for death. Just time. Dawn tries its best, but the clouds aren't having it. You wake in a soft grey, the kind that makes you question time, location, and whether you remembered to feed the dog. You did. Dr. 2 is licking your mask as a reminder. You step outside, boots squelching, and immediately regret it. The street smells like pickled mud and old socks. Your first stop is the small convent near the edge of town, the one that somehow always smells like time. Sister Eloise greets you at the gate, eyes tired but kind. We have a guest, she says, found near the river. The guest, as it turns out, is a soldier more rust than man, now curled on a cot armour, damp and flaking. You lean close. He's murmuring in old French. The sisters don't understand him. You barely do. Something about stars. About a white horse. You remove his helmet carefully, revealing a patchwork of scars and a truly terrible haircut. He's burning up, you say. We need cold cloths and willow bark. You stay for a while watching as they clean him, murmuring prayers like lullabies. Eventually his fever breaks just slightly. You whisper something you're not sure is medical. You're not done yet. On your way out, Sister Eloise hands you a loaf of warm bread. For strength, she says. And because you look hungry, you smile. Is it that obvious? Yes. Mid-morning takes you to the town's edge where a group of weavers has built a communal tent. Inside, it's warm, colourful, and filled with the rhythmic thunk of looms. They pause as you enter. We need thread, one woman says. The strong kind. For masks. For flags. She holds one up bright red with a simple stitched eye. To let people know we still see each other. You feel a tug in your chest. You leave them with a pouch of lavender and a warning not to drink the dye water again. They laugh, and one offers you a woven bracelet. You tie it next to the ribbon on your wrist. Next, a visit to the tax collector. Not your usual call, but apparently he hasn't been seen in days. You find him in his office surrounded by parchment and despair. I can't keep track anymore, he says. Names crossed out. So many crossed out. You look at his ledger. Names in ink. Then scratch through. Some with tiny black dots beside them. Others with question marks. You're not a priest, you say gently. You're a counter. Counters don't carry guilt. He looks up hollow. Who will remember them? You reach into your satchel, take the glass vial, the rain catcher, and set it beside him. When it's full, you say let it go. He nods barely. Your next stop is odd. A woman claims to be haunted. Not by ghosts, by smells. They're everywhere, she says. Boiled cabbage ashes, wet fur, but there's nothing there. You take a breath. She's right. Something's off. You've smelled everything in this town, but this... It's like memory weaponized. You check her for fever, normal. Pulse fine, but her hands tremble. You're grieving, you say. Everyone is. Yes, but not everyone smells it. Historians still argue whether mass trauma creates phantom senses, smells, sounds, echoes of catastrophe. You don't argue. You hand her a bundle of cloves and rosemary. Hang this by the door, you say. Let it push the ghosts back. By mid-afternoon, you're at the public well. Someone reported a slimy situation. They weren't wrong. Green algae has taken over. It bubbles like it's plotting something. You inspect the water. Still clear beneath. Just surface scum. You instruct the townsfolk to filter with boiled cloth and maybe not panic over frog-friendly water. You jot it in your notes, algae uprising. Non-sentient, probably. Dr. Two drinks from a bucket completely unbothered. Next stop, the local scribes. Their ink supply has gone bad. Mouldy. It smells like cheese, one complains. You inspect it. Yep, definitely cheese adjacent. You advise them to switch from gall ink to charcoal temporarily. One scribe sighs, but then the poetry looks sadder. Maybe it should, you offer. He doesn't disagree. As you leave, they hand you a page. A short poem. We do not shout our names to time. We whisper through the ash and lime. You fold it into your satchel between the orange peel and the baby hat. Evening finds you at the bell tower. The bell ringer, an old man with a limp and a bad temper, has requested a consultation. You climb the endless steps, knees protesting. At the top, he sits with his back to the bell. I hear it even when I'm not ringing it, he says. You're probably concussed. No, he replies. It's not in my head, it's under my ribs. You place a hand on his shoulder. Feel the tension, the tremor. It's the sound of waiting, you say. He nods, tears forming. It's been a long wait. He lets you ring the bell once gently. It echoes down the town like a heartbeat. Your final stop is a woman who makes wind chimes. She's hung dozens of them outside her home. They tinkle in soft chaos. I like reminders, she says, that the air moves, that we're still breathing. She's crafting one from spoon handles and broken keys. She offers you one shaped like a crescent moon. Hang it wherever the wind finds you. Back at your quarters, you lay out today's strange blessings. A moon chime. The bread of strength. A red-stitched flag. Ink-scented poetry. The bell that hums in ribs. You sit with them. You write. Flags to be seen. Names in rain. Bells beneath breath. Wind that whispers hope. Dr. Two curls up his tail wrapped like a question mark. You close your eyes and feel it, the ghost of chimes, the smell of rosemary, the quiet tolling of stories not quite over. Today you start with a funeral. Not your usual assignment, but the priest is ill, and the family asked specifically for the doctor with the bird face. He helped her, they said. He made her laugh once. So you go. It's quiet. Just 7 people in the graveyard, spaced out like they're afraid of ghosts catching coughs. The woman in the wooden boat coffin lies still, but her smile, the one the carpenter carved, is catching on. A few of the mourners smile back at her. You do too. You say nothing profound, just stand with them, breathe with them. As they lower her into the earth, a breeze kicks up. The tiny crescent moon chime on your belt rings once. You think not gone, just moved. From there, your day unfolds in moments, not events. The fabric of this place has shifted. A town past the worst, perhaps. Still sick, but breathing better. You stop by the blacksmith's. He's making bells now. Small ones. For goats, maybe, he says, or for people who forget they're alive. He gives you one. It tinkles softly when you walk. Your next visit is the school, or what's left of it. A few children are gathered trying to read. The teacher is missing, so an older child reads aloud, mispronouncing everything with courage. You sit, pull out the scribe's sad charcoal, and write the alphabet on a slate. Let's teach the letters like they're spells, you suggest. Every word a small act of defiance. They like that. especially the part about spells. Later you check on the man who sells candles. He started crafting them in the shapes of animals, foxes, owls, even a small bear that looks suspiciously like Dr. Two. You buy one. Payment, he asks. You hand him the fig sketch from the monk. Trade art for art. He beams. The baker's boy brings you a note. Come to the hill, it reads. Just come. So you do. Atop the hill, half the town is gathered. Not for a riot, not for a funeral. Just to be. Someone's built a huge straw effigy, half saint, half scarecrow. And kids are tying their fears to it with bits of yarn. You add yours a tiny braid made from your old mask strap. Then someone plays music. A hurdy-gurdy of all things. You forgot how absurdly cheerful that instrument sounds. People dance. Badly. Beautifully. You watch. Then you join in. Your mask bounces with each step and you laugh a real one this time. Even Dr. Two chases his tail in rhythm. Historians still argue whether plague towns held festivals to celebrate survival or to defy death. You decide both. Why choose? As twilight sinks, you sit near the effigy, now glowing with lantern light. Someone passes you a bowl of stew, root vegetables, and maybe, just maybe, a slice of sausage. Real meat, you ask. Hope so, they answer. But don't check too closely. You eat it anyway. The stars blink awake. You forgot how many there were. The midwife from before sits beside you. The babies are moving again, she says. You smile. Told you. Right on time. She takes your hand. Not for romance, just for proof. You are real, still here. You sit that way a while. When you return to your room, you lay everything out one last time. The ribbon from the pigeons. The bracelet from the weavers. The fig drawing. The smile coffin splinter. The baby hat. The moon chime. The goat bell. The alphabet slate. The tiny bear candle. A strange collection. A soft museum of the awful and the beautiful. You write your last entry. They danced. They burned fear. A bear made of wax. The bell still rings under my ribs. We whisper louder now. Dr. Two yawns. You remove the mask. Breathe without filters. And for the first time in weeks, you don't dream of coughing. You dream of wind and bells and people dancing like the world's not ending. Because for now it isn't. So now it's just you lying there, still and safe beneath your blankets. Let the last of that strange journey linger like the soft taste of honey on your tongue. Picture the flicker of candlelight across ancient stone, the gentle sway of wind chimes outside a crooked window, and that bell-deep patience still ringing somewhere far away, low enough to match the beat of your heart. The plague doctor's coat hangs silent now, no longer needed for this night. The ribbon on your wrist flutters, the stitched flag still catches the wind. The little bear candle hasn't melted much. It watches over you, eyes made of wax, reminding you that even in the worst times, someone somewhere decided a bear-shaped candle mattered. Let the air around you feel a little heavier in a good way, like the weight of soft blankets, like the hush of a world that's finally quiet. If a breeze stirs in your room, imagine it's from those hilltop dancers. If you hear a creak or a sigh from the wood, imagine it's just Dr. Two shifting in his sleep pause, twitching in dreams of simpler days. You're not in the Middle Ages anymore. But you were, just for a while, and you survived. Now take a long, slow breath, in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time, but softer. There you go. Close your eyes. Let the mask fall away. Let the bells ring low and drift. End of script. Sweet dreams.